Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This IBF eliminator involving Kubrat Pulev, it's really had more drama and twists and turns than a bad reality show. But it does look like that Pulev, he may now have an opponent in the form of Huey Fury. So there's a whole lot going on in the situation and has been for months. So what I'll do is I'll step through the latest developments, some of the history. So we've had Jarrell Miller turning down the fight, Fury coming into the frame, and his father saying that they do want the fight. And of course, Pulev, his response to it all, including the likely fight date. And then what I want to do later on is circle back to Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Big Baby Miller. And some of the comedic statements coming from his promoter, and also Miller himself, some of the actions. He's talking a big game, he wants the big fight, but he's not prepared to take any risk by the look of it. Buckle in. Let's go. It's easy to forget that this IBF eliminator situation, it's been going on for 4 months. Most people would have forgotten that actually Dominic Breazeale, he was first ordered by the IBF in March to face Kubrat Pulev. But after failing to reach a deal, he pulled out of the prospective fight before it went to a purse bid, and that had been scheduled for April 10th. And as a result of pulling out of the fight, he was later dropped from the IBF rankings. And then we go to April. Dillian Whyte is ordered to face Pulev, and similarly, he can't reach a deal. But this time it does go to a purse bid in late May. A surprise third-party bidder, Epic Sports and Entertainment, it wins the bid, over $1.5 million, and it wants to stage the fight in Bulgaria. Dillian Whyte and his team, Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, they don't want that. They walk away from the fight in early June, opting instead to face Joseph Parker. Dillian Whyte is later dropped from the IBF rankings. Then Jarrell Miller, he is ordered to face Kubrat Pulev, and a purse bid is held in late June. Miller's promoters, Dimitri Salita and Greg Cohen, didn't bid. Not a jot, nothing came in, didn't bother to put in a bid. What happens is the purse bid is again won by Epic Sports and Entertainment for just over $2.1 million. Shortly after, Jarrell Miller takes to social media to start complaining about it.
Pulev situation is a serious situation, but I can tell you now, I'm not going to Bulgaria. What else can I say? They definitely got to come up with some more bread. That's for sure.
And now he's pulled out of the fight. So his promoter, Dimitri Salita, told Sky Sports, "We were trying for the fight to happen in the United States, or at the very least some kind of neutral territory, and we just couldn't make that deal. Jarrell wants to fight the best fighters in the world, and Pulev is a very good fighter, and we would consider that fight, just the location didn't work for us. Jarrell has demonstrated in his last few fights that he's willing to fight the best, and he stepped up. That's always been our goal. We'll explore other options, but I think we'll have something significant to announce soon." So a fourth potential opponent in IBF 5th-ranked Huey Fury is now in the frame, and Fury's trainer and father Peter says they will take the fight, saying on Twitter, "At Hennessy Sports, done great job securing at Huey Fury to face Pulev for mandatory position. Huey wants it, Pulev wants it, Bulgaria, here we come." Then in a follow-up tweet, Peter Fury says, "All I see is fighters avoiding the real fights, or acting up to the public for false recognition. Social media warriors. At Huey Fury is the new face of real heavyweight boxing. No need to behave a moron if you can fight." And so what of Jarrell Miller? He's taken to where else but social media with this video clip of his training. You can see the caption is, "On the job, waiting for someone to slip up." And I will very much be coming back to this statement and some of his recent actions very shortly. But in terms of the latest developments, the seemingly most avoided man in boxing right now, Kubrat Pulev, he's made a statement on his Facebook. So he's referenced Miller's pullout, the fact that it was all over the location, Then he goes on to Huey Fury and he says the fight is most likely to take place on October 6th in Sofia. Okay, so October 6th in Bulgaria. If Peter Fury is true to his word, the opponent should be Huey Fury. And for me now, it'll be interesting to see what is going to happen in terms of a contract. Does Epic Sports just present Fury a contract with the same terms and money that came out of the Miller purse bid? Or does a new deal have to be reached? Or is it a worst case scenario that they will go to another purse bid, which would be 3 in 3 months for this fight? Obviously, if it went to a purse bid, it would be in Hennessy Sports' interest to get the fight to the UK, grab that hometown advantage. But, you know, would Hennessy Sports be able to muster enough backing to compete with Epic Sports? This isn't a title fight after all, it's an eliminator. But I would expect that if an agreement can't be reached very shortly, that Epic Sports will again petition the IBF to hold another purse bid at relatively short notice. They want to get cracking, get this locked in, have Pulev fighting in Bulgaria. Well, that would be the plan for them, of course. But given a direct path to a title shot, it's fallen in Huey Fury's lap. I mean, you'd have to say he'd be mad not to take it. You just got to take this opportunity. And that does appear to be what the attitude of the Fury camp is to this fight falling into its lap. But in terms of the actual fight, at first glance I thought, well, this could end up being a bit of a snooze fest. But if it did end up being in Bulgaria, Fury, he would likely need to throw a bit of caution to the wind and channel some aggression, some of which he showed in the Sam Sexton fight, because he would need to force the action, potentially knock Kubrat Pulev out. And sure, you might say, well, Sam Sexton isn't Kubrat Pulev, but he would need to show some of that same intent and be prepared to engage with Pulev at times, and really test that 37-year-old's chin. And like I've been saying for a while, Kubrat Pulev, he's been really inactive in recent years. He's had 4 or 5 fights in the last 4 years. And it'll be 18 months since his last fight by the time October rolls around. We don't know what Pulev has left in the tank. We don't know what version of him is going to show up. But regardless of that, Fury would have to look to stop Pulev to take the judges out of the equation. Because in front of a partisan crowd, it would be hard to get the decision if the fight is close. And just on this whole judging in Bulgaria thing, which seems to be a bit of a one-sided and a fair degree of hypocrisy that's surrounding this. At the end of the day, the IBF, it's going to sign off on the fight in terms of the officials and all that sort of stuff. It needs to ensure that the people that are officiating are up to scratch. I would, though, like someone to actually point to me any evidence that Pulev has been gifted a decision at home in Bulgaria. What are we basing some of this on? It just seems to be, you know, people go, oh, it's going to be in Bulgaria, it's going to be a complete rort. Is there any evidence to actually suggest that, though? I would think that would be hard to actually sort of say, because Pulev has fought his career largely outside of Bulgaria, largely based in Germany, but he has had a couple fights at home, but they were very wide cards, and he was facing faded former contenders in the form of Sam Peter and then Kevin Johnson. But let's just say if that situation was reversed and Pulev had to fight Dillian Whyte in the UK or Jarrell Miller in the US, surely we'd be saying the exact same thing, that if the fight ends up being close, that a decision could likely go to the home fighter. That just seems to be something that we all agree happens. And things like a raucous crowd, that does make a difference. We've seen it. But to automatically say Pulev will be gifted the fight in Bulgaria when there's nothing to actually back that up is, in my view, a bit of a step too far. But if Fury wants to take it out of the hands of the judges, then he will have to go in with some aggression and look for a knockout. But getting back to Jarrell Miller, he's walked away from a career-high payday of $527,000. I believe his highest payday is just over $200,000, $225,000 I believe. And he's walked away from a guaranteed shot at the IBF belt that he would have got if he beat Kubrat Pulev. His promoters, they didn't put in a purse bid, but then they tried to do all they could to get the fight moved to anywhere but Bulgaria. If his promoters were so concerned with where the fight was going to be staged, well, why not try to actually put a bid in and win the purse bid? Get control of the fight. Hold it wherever you want. I mean, it seems a bit comical, doesn't it? They want to lose the purse bid, but then have it all their own way. And now I'm just going to return to the earlier clip with Miller saying he's waiting for someone to slip up. So running in the background here. What does that even mean? A direct path to a title shot was there for the taking. On Instagram a few days ago, he actually said to Andy Ruiz Jr., who'd been calling him out, or one, he said he wouldn't fight Ruiz, but two, he said, I'm waiting on my mandatory. And you'd have to assume that that could only be the WBA. He's not high enough anywhere else at the moment to get a shot, but he is in line to face the winner of Manuel Char and Freza Kendo. They are fighting in September. And Char, he is likely to beat the mid-40-something Kendo, who hasn't fought since 2014. If it is Char that wins, would the WBA call a Miller-Char fight straight away? No guarantees. Who knows? But even if they did, the fight wouldn't happen until sometime in 2019. It could be March, April, mid-year, who knows? But even then, it is the regular title. It's the second fiddle to the WBA Super Champion belt, and it's not needed for Undisputed. So Miller appears to be going for this belt, the winner of the Char-Kendo fight. And it really appears from Miller's actions, despite what he says, he's going for the softest possible option to try and get a version of a heavyweight title. Yet he continues to front as if he's the most dangerous guy in the division, waiting for someone to slip up to get his big opportunity. And his promoter is in on this whole act, saying Jarrell Miller has demonstrated in his last few fights that he's willing to fight the best. Okay, well, let's look at those guys. Gerald Washington, Marius Wok, Johan Dorper. They're all solid top 30 guys, but they are not the best. That is not demonstrating you're fighting the best. And to say otherwise is laughable. Miller's progression should see him stepping into a fight like the Pulev one, not turning it down. Oh, wait. What's that? It appears we've got some breaking news. This just in. Jarrell Big Baby Miller, his stock is falling. Yes, he has been saying on social media he's a top 3 heavyweight, yet he's only been fighting fading contenders and is saying no to fights, 2 this week in particular, Kubrat Pulev and Andy Ruiz. So, just to recap, Jarrell Miller, his stock is falling. And the thing is here, Jarrell Miller, he's been saying all the right things on his come up in the division, but when he's actually got to a well-positioned place in it, he's decided to play it safe, not take any risks, but continue to try say in front as if he's the best thing since sliced bread. Like he said, he's waiting for his mandatory. But he can't expect to get that WBA regular title, if he even gets a shot at it, if and when he eventually fights for it, and then for fans to turn around and praise him and for all of a sudden for him to be a big star. It's not going to work like that. The fact that he's shying away from better fights that are available on offer to him, it raises some questions about his confidence, his heart, and while he might have an A-plus trash-talking game, he can't talk his way to a title. And a lot of fans are only lukewarm on him as a fighter anyway. He needs another top contender on his record to grow his profile, get people believing in him. He really does need that win. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.